Yes, well, this is episode 4. It's a new story that I'll talk about. And I'm at the coffee shop across from the Gare du Nord, uh, which is really nice. You can see it there. This is this train station that takes the trains to London from Paris. So I'm in Paris and at the same coffee shop. And I'm having a cup of coffee. And I haven't looked to see if anybody bought me a coffee, but I went ahead and got a coffee anyway. So yeah, if you can, buy me a coffee. It costs $5, and you can do it at bobmeacoffee.com. And anyway, this story is about how I ended up doing animation. Had a company, and we did Sesame Street. I'm sure you guys probably remember that. A long time ago, but I actually produced the films that you saw on Sesame Street that were animated. Things like This is brought to you by the number 4, or How do you treat a pet? And the answer to that is you pet him. These were for kids. And the reason that this happened was there were some people from CBS News, and they decided to get money from the government and work on something called the Children's Television Workshop. And they came up with the idea for Sesame Street, Big Bird, and all of that. And they did some studies on children, and they found that adults watch commercials to get information, but children see that, and they like commercials. That's kind of how children like commercials. They saw their parents watching them, and they knew the commercials were informative. But kids, they want to become adults, and they want to learn. And so the study showed that children will respond really well to cartoon commercials that would teach them something about life, like how do you take care of a pet? You pet him. What are the numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. So they came up with this idea of we need some animators, some cartoonists to create these things, but we don't have a lot of money, even though we're funded by the government, which it was, public television. So what happened is I was doing a television commercial, I think, for Pizza Hut or one of these guys or whatever. And I went over and I talked to the people at the Children's Television Workshop. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm doing some animated commercials. And I have a partner who's from Canada. And he is a very young guy, 20s or whatever. And he, as we were then. And he cannot get a job in Los Angeles. His dream is to work on George of the Jungle, but he can't get a job because of the unions. They don't want the unions in California, the animators, cartoonists do not want young people because they'll lose their jobs to the young people, right? So they won't allow young people in the unions. So he was living in Canada, and he's an animator, doing it. When he was in high school, instead of studying, he drew cartoons, and the teacher would get mad at him all the time. And his teacher told him that he would be a failure. Well, didn't work out that way. Actually, his name was Jack White, and he actually he did the cartoons for Sesame Street with me. But he needed a producer, and that was what I was good at. I edited films and made films and put the voice track and all. And he drew the drawings and the cartoons. And so what I did is he went to Dallas. I was working in Dallas at the time on some films, and we started an office in Dallas, Texas. And Texas has right to work laws. You don't have the union problem, so he could work in Dallas. And then I talked to Children's Television Workshop, and they said we don't have a lot of money. And I said, look, here's an idea, and it was their idea also, basically. I said, the most expensive thing when you're doing a cartoon is the backgrounds. actually. It's not the little characters. I mean, the characters are important too, of course, probably maybe half the cost. But said, why don't what we can do is let's do cartoons and there won't be a background at all. So we won't have to paint that artwork like Walt Disney does and the big animation companies. We'll just have a plain background and we're going to put all the money into the little character because that's what's really important is the cartoon character. And if we do that, we can do the production for a lot less money, very cheap. And they said, well, yeah. They said that's a good idea. And I said, so what they came up with after talking with me and some other people, they said, look, what we can do, we'll just give you money, and you make cartoons. We'll give you what we'd like to see, what we're trying to teach the kids, and you just create the characters, design the whole thing, and just do it, and we'll pay for it, and then we'll test it, and just do a lot of them, and we'll give you an income stream that's just continuous, right? So that way you're just going to have a lot of work, and it'll be continuous, and then we're gonna test market them. And the ones that work we'll use and keep, and the ones that don't work we'll put them in storage. So that was the game plan. So we started doing Sesame Street, and we're designing these things in Dallas, Texas, with my partner Jack White, and it was a big success. And of course Jack got to meet Big Bird, which he liked. Jack loved cartoons and things like that, And then what Jack did to save money on these deals also is he was married to Wendy, who was a Canadian also, and she had a lot of housewife friends, and they said, hey, we can do the painting. It's called background painting. And what that is the way it works is Jack would draw the character. You have 1,000 frames, I think, in a 60-second commercial, and I think these were 60 seconds long, or maybe 30 seconds. I can't remember, but anyway, he would draw the character in ink on acetate, on plastic, clear plastic, okay, and then he'd have to draw. I think he would draw half the drawings. So if we needed 500 frames. He could draw 250, and we just shoot 2 frames at a time. And people that worked. You don't have to draw every single frame. You can kind of cheat a little bit. So we did, and that saved money. And then his wife, who had all these girlfriends, they would paint. Jack would pay them to paint at home. They were bored. They were at home. These women, their husbands were working, and so Wendy was in charge of the painting, the backgrounds. And what you do is you turn the plastic over on the reverse side, and you paints behind the character. And then when you flip it and you look at the character, it's full color, is beautiful, And then what I would do with Jack is we'd use a machine called the Oxberry. And what that is that's an animation camera. And the Oxberry would shoot 2 frames at a time on a piece of film. And then when you run the film, you have movement and animation. And so that's how we produce the picture. And then I would do the soundtrack for it. I'd go in fact, I worked with the guy who did Bugs Bunny, Mel Blanc. I met him in Los Angeles, and I think he did some voiceovers for us, as a matter of fact. And so, because he did, Bugs Bunny, so he knew about cartoons. And so, anyway, so we started producing these things, and we did a lot of them, and we had a great time doing it. And then Jack, the failure, as his teacher said, he loved hockey. That was his big thing because he's Canadian, right? And when then he got to the point where we had people working in L.A., we had people working in Bellingham, Washington, the Canadians, and what would happen is, actually they worked in Vancouver, and then we'd smuggle their work across the border to Bellingham, and then so I had Canadians working on these films, and some other animators that Jack got to do this with him, and it became a big project. And but then Jack finally moved to Los Angeles because he got older, and he somehow, I guess, he got in the union or whatever, and then he loved hockey. And then he helped. He became the coach for the Mighty Ducks, which is a very famous hockey team in Los Angeles. Anaheim is where they were based, actually, and he did that, and then he and we started doing cartoons for commercials as well as Sesame Street. And then the best story about him, or one of the best, he was a fan of a guy named Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne Gretzky was a great hockey player, or is a great, or I don't know if he's still hockey playing, but Gretzky and Jack became good friends because of the hockey. And then Jack said to him, he said, "Hey, are you getting tired of signing autographs?" And Gretzky said, "Yeah, it's just terrible." And he said, "Look," he said, well, "I'm a cartoonist. I'll sign the contract. I'll draw a cartoon on all the autographs that you do, and people will love that, And they tried it, and it worked. And Gretzky ended up paying Jack, I think it was $2,000 a day, to do his autographs for him. And not only that, what Jack was really interested in is he got to travel with Gretzky all over the world to all the hockey matches, and Gretzky paid for that too. So Jack became the coach of the Mighty Ducks, and he got to travel the world doing hockey, and he did cartoons. And so he was a great guy. And then also he became my art director. I started doing documentary films. I did a documentary film in France, actually, with the French government. And it was a documentary on the life of Lafayette, and I'll tell the story about that later, another story. And Jack was my art director. So Jack and I, we did a lot of things and had a great time. And so that's the film business, you never know what's going to happen, how it's going to go, but always interesting. And the way you get into things like this, I learned in the film business, when you start with a film, you have nothing. And you just jump off the cliff and you just go for it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then you try another project. And I think what's the statistics? I think the way Hollywood actually operates the studios, it's like oil wells. 1 out of 11 or 12 oil wells make money and pay for the other 10 that failed. And movies are the same way. And that's what the studios do. They don't know what movie's going to make money, but they invest, the studios make 12 of them a year. And they know one of them probably will pay for everything. And that's the way it works. And so the film business is you just jump off the cliff, you just do a bunch of things, and you just keep going. So just live your dream, just go for it, and worry about the money, as you go, but don't wait for the money. Just start going, and you will fall into things, and you'll have a fun life. And so that was my story about doing Sesame Street. And then I'll talk later about making the film with the French government. I worked with the Minister of Interior on a film for Lafayette, and we shot in the Palace of Versailles. I think we had it for a week because he was the Minister of the Interior. And that was, I shot it in Panavision, 35 millimeter widescreen. It was really, really a great project, a lot of fun. Crazy though, of course, but that's the film business. So this is my 4th story. And if you like the story, hey, buy me a cup of coffee. You don't have to, but it would be nice. So have a great day, and that's it. Okay. This is the end of episode 4, I think. Yep.